Hello, our friends, and welcome back to our last episode for this cohort. I'm Victoria Pappas.
I'm Kevin Heyman.
There you are.
Oh, hey, I'm back.
And so we were thinking of a couple of ideas for this track, and a few weeks ago we went to a conference called Asset. And I believe in our previous set of tracks we did cover Asset, but this was, I think, a new experience with new keynote speakers, new options for breakout sessions that we went to that I thought is worth mentioning. So we wanted to revisit the topic of conferences. And then, of course, for your last assignment, we discussed Q&As. So we had you submit some questions. We're not going to get to all the questions just because of time and logistics, but we will get to a few of them. And for those who we don't get to, I will respond to your question through Google Classroom. So let's go. So when we went to the conference earlier it was like mid-March, I want to say.
Yeah, I think it was the second Monday in March, I think.
Sounds about right. I lose track of time easily.
Yeah. Time's a blur.
Yeah. So it was at the Huntington Hilton, not in Huntington, but in Melville. And for those of you who have not been to a conference, usually the day starts out with a keynote speaker, some breakfast, and then you go to your breakout sessions. Usually it's one breakout session and some vendor time, which is probably my favorite time, is getting to know those vendors and building those relationships, followed by 2 other sessions. And then we'll get to what happens after the conference in a little bit. So for starters, our keynote was Weston Kieschnick. And I saw Weston a few years ago back at BOCES, and by a few years, it feels like it was only 3 years ago, but I'm pretty sure it was like over 5 years ago, probably 7. And he, at the time, spoke about Bold School, and he had an entire acronym about how you should plan and prepare your lessons, starting always with your objective in mind, adding your instructional strategy, and then moving on to the instructional technology piece. And that was in the beginning of him keynoting and going to meetings and conferences. That was what his whole idea was about. Now he's made a little bit of a shift, and Bold School still applies, and it's actually something that we've pretty much adopted in ConnectQuad over the past several years, is that model of Bold School. However, now during this asset presentation, he introduced his new book called Atlas, and that is discussing, it's broken down into attention, transition, lesson, activity, and summation. And it's all about what the lesson should actually look like, not so much how you are planning out your lesson. And it speaks about student engagement and getting to the core of what engagement means. Which I think is such a great topic, because when I hear engagement, you don't get so deep like this guy does. So if you're interested in learning about student engagement and capturing their attention, I would definitely recommend this book. One thing that he did bring up during the keynote, which I know has a mix of reviews, is he was talking about the technology that students have and kids have now, and he brought up the fact that his own kids do not have a cell phone. And you just heard, like, the room went silent, like, yeah, exactly. And it was interesting to me because, I think from now I only have a 3-year-old, and I'm like, no, he's not going to get a cell phone. Like, I'm not planning on giving him a cell phone up until he really needs one, so maybe high school we'll think about it. But you clearly know that in the audience there are differing opinions.
Right.
And it was funny to hear him say why he decided not to. And I have to agree with his reasons. And, we'll talk about this in the discussion board, because I think we're all going to have differing opinions, and that's okay. Whatever your thoughts are your thoughts. But he made mention of something that I think will stick with me for a long time. And it's the piece that we get distracted with our cell phones. even me, like if I'm in a meeting, I'm always checking my phone because I know there's going to be an email that I don't want to miss, or a text message, or I'm afraid that I'm missing something, right? And that was the whole premise of what he's talking about. You know, we have to be in the moment. We have to be present. And I agree with that. There's so many times that we need to be focused on who we are with and what we're talking about, and not thinking about all the other things that we're doing. And I think part of the reason why we've gotten that way is because of social media and our phones and all those other things.
Absolutely.
And he made a comparison, and I believe it was like, just if you're watching a movie, I'm pretty sure he used the movie reference. If you're watching a movie and someone just keeps tapping you, that's exactly what your cell phone's doing to you all day long. It's getting that attention, like, hey, look at me, hey, look at me. And I thought that analogy was extremely powerful, because that's exactly what it's doing. It's giving you a notification. It's saying, hey, look at me, whatever it is. It's, you think, hey, could it be more important? And we're always guessing, like, what it is, who it is, and stuff like that. So I think just in the larger majority, he was trying to say we need to start putting them away, time and place and things of that nature. So it was really a powerful message, whether you agreed with it or not agreed with it. I think that we can all agree that we should be present and in the moment for people, our family, our friends, etc.
Yeah, I agree.
So moving forward from that, Kevin went to a different breakout session than I did.
Yes.
So I'm going to have Kevin speak about his, and then I'm going to go back to Weston, because I did go to Weston's breakout session. So you can go first.
Yeah, sure. So I actually went and into I forget exactly the name, but it was basically a DPO session, which was about like all the like security protocols and things on the IT side, on the back end, things that are coming down from the state level, as far as things that we may have to or will be in the future once we get all that guidance and information, about just safety and awareness about things that are good practices for end users, what to do on the back end to secure information, what we're doing to make sure that data doesn't get leaked for people, making sure that things like MFA, multi-factor authentication, things like that are coming down, even on a student level. Those are conversations that are happening early on. It's just very insightful to see what other districts across the island and are implementing or beginning to implement. And I think that we're in a very good position of where we are right now, and obviously we're always looking to improve things and make things secure and not difficult. So that's one thing that I always like to stress to people. We're not doing anything, making changes for people to make their lives more difficult. It's just about a matter of protecting everybody, making sure your information and data are not, somehow exposed out there in the interwebs, and just informing everybody about, what could potentially be malicious, what's safe, what's not safe. It was just very cool to see that. It was just leaders from other districts across the island just saying how they've handled it. And I'm excited to see, what phases we're going to start to implement in the future.
And I think we did start that, I believe, last year with MFA.
Yeah.
So this all kind of ties in with where we were in the district, where we are in the district,
Sure.
and moving forward. And I think it's important to know that these aren't, like, ConnectBot rules. Like, hey, we're trying to make you do your password a million times, put out a push notification. There's a reason for it. And
And that, like I mentioned, is that like a lot of this is state level. Like, I want to say they're like mandates. They're recommendations right now, but eventually they will be mandates. And it's not to make everyone's lives difficult, but making sure your passwords are refreshed, making sure that they're complex.
Your passwords are what?
Complex. And
you said refreshed.
Refreshed. Oh, I didn't catch myself. I was like, wow. I was like, oh, what'd I say? But yeah, so it was very interesting. And the room, maybe it was just because it was a bit of a smaller room, but it was packed out. It was standing room only. Luckily, I got a seat in the corner. It was 1,000 degrees in there, but it was very informative. There was a lot of technology directors and just people in technology in general. some people behind the scenes, some of the forefront, some of the leaders, some principals, things like that were in there asking questions. It was pretty cool. It was very informative.
Awesome. So my breakout session, I went back to Weston because I'm a fan of his, as everyone probably knows already in the couple of minutes that they've listened to us. And I was curious what take he was going to go in the breakout session, because he just did an hour keynote. So it's like, okay, after an hour, like, what more can a person say? And he totally did a different spin on it. And he had, like, some map in the background, like a story map of, different strategies and stuff like that. He had a slideshow, and he started to tell us a story. And you always know, like, the person presenting, there's a method to their madness, basically. So I just didn't know where he was going with the story. So he started out by telling us a story about him and his wife. They pulled up to this house, to their house, and they saw the house down the road where they had an open house. So he asked basically all of us, what do you do? And the large majority said, well, we're going to the open house. So he goes, well, yeah, that's what me and my wife did. And he took us through the whole story about going into this open house. Clearly, I knew there was a principle about this story, because I'm like, I didn't just go and sit here in a breakout session and hear about someone's open house. But guess what? I could probably regurgitate that entire story. And he spent a good probably 10 to 15 minutes telling us about this open house, every room, the detail, the people in the room, what they were watching. And it's because he used mnemonics the entire time, and that's one of the more highly effective teaching strategies. So he was basically modeling an instructional strategy for us while telling a story. And that's why I could go through each room right now if I really wanted to, and said exactly what he said, because he used, he had us repeat, he had us visualize, and all of these things. And you're like, okay, so what happened next? And you really want to know what happened.
Wow.
Meanwhile, there was literally, he made up half the story. But it's because of the, instructional strategy.
Right.
And then he went into John Hattie's work in talking about the, highly effective size of instructional strategies, which, if you take a look at it, it's actually amazing work, because they did studies, and they basically did a study of classes and students and all of this stuff. And they saw, like, if you have direct instruction, it's, more highly effective than another type of teaching strategy. So that's another recommendation that I have for everyone, is just tap into that work, because there's so many things that you already do that may have a fancy name to them. Mm-hmm. And it's proven to be a highly effective teaching strategy. For example, interactive video is on the list. So, our platform for Edpuzzle is something that I highly recommend all the time. So, because gone are the days that we're putting on a video and pressing pause or just letting it play, because we know that using Edpuzzle is effective for kids to understand.
Right.
So that was my breakout session one.
Nice.
Then we move on to, we had vendor time, I think.
Right.
In between, and we had lunch.
Yes.
Which I'm always confused about, because I'd rather do 2 sessions and then lunch and then the one, but then I think maybe people won't stick around, so that's maybe why they do that, I don't know. Possibly. But so we had lunch, we collaborated with our team, we had members from IT there, as well as computer science and engineering. We had our district mentor there, we had a library media specialist.
Yep.
We had a good group to attend, and then we went to breakout session 2, which was on artificial intelligence.
Yes.
You may have heard of the presenter before.
Yeah, I don't know. I think her name's Elise Pulliam. I don't know. She sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar. I don't really know where she is. And she's in Comac now?
Yeah,
what?
I don't know.
Whatever. Anyway, so she did great, guys. We're just kidding around. Yeah. She did amazing, and she spoke about AI and how it can help you with your administrative tasks. Not so much as an administrator, but even your teaching tasks, and how to make your day, a little lighter than maybe what it used to be by using AI, and how it's your assistant,
Right.
So, really good session. She, of course, had her humor in there. She partnered with a couple of the vendors to do some funny videos. And it was nice to hear, other districts using it and how they're using it.
Right.
That collaborative aspect is always eye-opening too.
I think that was and I know I said it about even the session I went to on the DPO stuff, but I think it was that was a very good session to go to also because of all the wide range of people that came to it from across the island and stuff like that. Because I just think it's really cool. Everybody's under one roof with similar or the same things in mind.
Right.
It's just very cool to hear what everybody's doing around the island. We live in this little, in a way, a little shoebox of our own district, but it's cool to just branch out and see what everyone else is doing as well.
It's like today. So this morning I was at Bosie's. I went with Liz, and it was, again, the topic of AI.
Right.
And there was 3 different districts, one from Nassau, one from Western, one from Eastern, presenting, and the different ways that they've incorporated AI into their district, if they even did, or the plan moving forward.
Right.
So it's really nice to gather, whether it's a conference, a meeting, wherever, to see we're all trying to get to the same place.
Yeah.
There's just different strategies on how people are going about it.
Right.
And then the last one that we both went to was it was the good, the bad, and the ugly, or something of that nature, about AI. And it was things that I would have never thought of. So the presenter is Tim Needles. He's all over X. I think he's a representative for Long Island at NICEgate. And he was just really going into a lot of the art AI and comparing, regular paintings to AI paintings and all of that. So it was definitely an outlet that I haven't discovered myself and gotten into. So it was nice to get that feedback from him and learn from him on the different tools that he's really dabbled into, and I believe he has a strong art background, so it was nice to get someone from that field to actually speak about it.
Right.
So
yeah, he's it's funny, I started following him after Lights on social media because we went to one of his sessions and he was actually talking about some of the same things, bringing up the fact of the built-in AI features in Photoshop and what is AI generated photos versus an actual just photo that's actually created by a photographer or drawn by somebody in Photoshop itself. He's very talented, and it's cool to see again what other people are doing and how they're leveraging it in their district.
Absolutely. So that. Oh, no, it does not conclude the conference. I was going to say that it concluded the conference. It kind of did.
Yeah.
But then there was a little part at the end where Kevin and I collaborated or spoke to News ELA.
Right.
And that was awesome because I have to say one of my favorite parts, and I think I said it in the beginning of this episode, is that partnerships with the vendors. So while there, I was able to catch up with Nearpod, speak to News ELA, speak to a couple of other people. A book creator was at Light, so they weren't there this time, but there's all these different vendors. I know there's a lot on the IT end of things, like the informational side, that the guys spoke with and everything, but you always get to catch up on updates and information that maybe you don't have time for in your workday to have these conversations, so it's nice. It's a nice piece to bring to the table.
Right.
So we did that with News ELA. They basically, of course they also want your business. So that's a piece of it. But it was also nice to hear how they could support the district and new initiatives that they have. So I thought it was a good conversation.
Yeah. All
right. So now the second portion of this episode is the Q&As. So last week, probably 2 weeks ago for you guys since you're listening to it, a week from now in the future, we had you submit some questions during that short week for us to answer, because I think it's always nice to hear or answer what you guys are interested in and not just topics that we think you would be interested in. So we're not answering all of them. Some of them, like I said in the beginning, we're going to answer directly on your post. But the first question, I'm going to have Kevin, the first 2 questions really, I'm going to have Kevin answer because they are about Google. So one of them was a concern about Google Drive freezing, And I believe we discussed this just a little bit before we started recording. And
So a lot of times, if something is, especially when it's a Google product, if something's freezing, a lot of times what happens is there's a newer version of Chrome that is likely out in the wild that needs to be updated on the computer or device that you're working from. A lot of times that resolves a lot of the issues. We do have our computers and devices district-wide checking in to auto-update, but that happens in increments, and it only can do so much at one time. A lot of times they happen within a day or so. Sometimes there's micro revisions within a week. So a lot of times something like Google Drive freezing is potentially a browser update that just needs to occur, or OS update like on the Chromebooks. It's the same idea, but basically a lot of times we recommend checking to see if there's an update, and it fixes a lot of that freezing.
And then the second part of the question is asking, when will the switch to Gmail officially take place? So we just completed the training at Idle Hour.
Correct.
And so the rollout plan is really from building to building, and sometimes departments and things of that nature.
Right.
But for instructional purposes, it's building to building. So we just completed Idle Hour. I believe all the buildings at this point have their schedule of when the training will take place.
Yep.
And then usually what will happen is either the day later or a few days later, within a few days of that training, is when the turnover will take place.
Yep.
So if you are getting trained, say on a Friday, your turnover from Outlook to Gmail will not take place until that Monday, that upcoming Monday.
Yeah.
So that should be coming. Your buildings know
Yep.
when that's taking place, so you can go ahead and ask. And we'll see you for the training, actually, because we'll be there for most of them, if not all of them.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting.
It is exciting. It is. Another Google question, and this has to do with Google security, so I'm going to have my friend Kevin answer this, because I'm not who is he? Where is he? So, do you have any idea why I've had to log into my Google account every day for the past week? Are they doing some kind of update every night? And this has nothing to do with the All Things Google folder, because I know there were a couple of questions regarding that in ClassLink. So that is completely separate. That's just a folder that was created, so all of the Google applications are in one folder.
Correct.
So it's taking up less space for everyone. Yep. That has nothing to do with this. So go ahead, Kevin.
No. That actually is a security feature that is enabled in the district right now. It's basically making sure you are who you are after a certain period of time. We want to make sure that your account is not stayed logged in Google-wise, and that is set for every 12 hours. So we try to extend that past a workday. Originally, I think it was set by default for 8 hours, and then we realized obviously that people work sometimes beyond that 8-hour window, so it's a little bit of a pain to keep having to sign back in. But that is by design to have people log in every day for security purposes in the event, God forbid, of a compromised password or anything like that. So yes, that is by design, and it's for security purposes, similar to what I was trying to stress before. Security. We're not doing it to make our life difficult, I promise. It's for security.
And then part 2, how is it possible for the new mail system to just transition from Outlook to Gmail? They cannot imagine that there will not be some type of snafu somewhere.
Snafu.
Love it.
Yeah. So
a lot of hard work. That's all I'm gonna. Stress.
I'm not usually one to pat myself on the back at all. But I'm lucky to be part of a group of people who are very highly motivated, and we're all working our tails off to make magic happen in a very, not a tight window, because I don't want to make it seem like we're stressing deadlines. But we're just making things happen at a quicker pace than usual. But yes, there is a transition. There's a big educational piece of just informing users that aren't familiar with Gmail. There's a lot of back-end magic, as we always like to say. This has been I'd say probably months of hard work being put to testing and making sure we've thought of every scenario. And like Victoria mentioned, we've began already transitioning one of the buildings over. Today, we actually went live over at Idle Hour. And I'm happy to say that, there weren't really any hiccups. There's been some minor little things that we've discovered just from user feedback, and we've adjusted on the fly for that. And that's what's going to happen when you're, in the middle of changing from one thing to another. And it's expected, because if there were, again, no problems, why the hell would I have a job?
Yeah, exactly.
And none of them are intentional. It's just that when you're moving from one platform to another, there's a lot of data that's being moved. Making sure folders, contacts, rules, calendars, things of that nature that come over smoothly without any full disruption. So, a lot of moving parts. So.
Calendars is a big one, just because I live by my calendar.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if my calendar wipes out, I don't know where I'm going, who I'm seeing, or anything. So if I don't show up, it's probably my calendar issue.
Don't put that in the air. No, don't put that in the air.
No. I already checked. My calendar is synced up very nicely. I am not missing anything. It's all good to go.
Nice.
So.
Yeah. So, just be patient with us, and again. Something new. We're all learning. It'll be, in the end, it'll be another thing that we can all look back on and say, remember that time we moved to Gmail. It's going to be great for everybody, honestly.
Next question. So I'm wondering about artificial intelligence and how it will affect elementary education. Can students use it or only teachers? So currently students, I believe, are blocked from using AI in the district. That doesn't mean that they're not using it outside of the district.
Correct.
I know that teachers are definitely using it. We do have a platform that Liz brought to us called Brisk AI, and you are welcome to install it. It's really, a lifesaver in regards to if you need to change a reading level, for a student. That can take your reading passage and change it from a 5th grade level to a 3rd grade level if you need. So the things that teachers wish they had at their fingertips years ago, now we do. So that's one of the more positive aspects of AI. There's a lot of other things that it can do too. You can take a reading and it can make questions for you in a Google form so that you're not sitting there for an hour going through the passage yourself and saying, I need to assess on these bullets. Now, do you have to double check its work? Absolutely, to make sure that it's accurate, but better that than creating your own original question. So it's definitely a time saver. Mm-hmm. As far as students using AI, I don't think that we're there yet in this moment, but I think we will be in the future.
Sure.
I think that, we have to teach them what AI is. We can't just assume that they know. Correct. I know earlier this year, I was in a middle school class. I believe it was a 7th grade class, and I mentioned AI, and they all got excited. And then I asked them, well, what is it? And they told me it's robots. And then there was one kid out of about 20-something kids in a class that was able to actually tell me what AI was beyond robots. Right. And so that was telling to me. Like, they know what it is. They can identify it, maybe.
Right.
But do they actually know, can they actually verbalize what it is and how it can help us? Mm-hmm. So I think that's something that we will, be doing in the future. But it's an exciting time. I know that a lot, there's mixed emotions about it. I certainly had those mixed emotions probably a year or two ago when the topic first came around. Right. And then I had a conversation with my husband, and I was like, AI is coming our way in education. And he goes, I've been using it for the past, 7 years for my job. And then he showed me how he was using it and how it benefited the company that he's in. And he's like, there's nothing to be afraid of. It's no one's taken over the world,
Right.
And I think we just have to come to terms that this is where we are, and how can we embrace it, and how can we educate ourselves and our kids and move on.
At the end of the day, there's been very little small iterations of quote unquote an AI for years around.
Yeah.
And devices, listen, our cell phones, our Alexas at home, or things like that. Those are like little assistants. So
don't tell my dad that. He hates the thing.
Turn the damn lights off.
Yeah. And then our last two questions. So someone wants their Elmo back. Val, I cannot give you an Elmo back. We cannot do that for you. We can maybe put an Elmo doll in your classroom, but we do not even have Elmos. But I know that you have the, what's it called, Kevin?
I think it's IPVO. IPVO, I think. They're like the little green guys.
Yeah, she has a green guy. I've been in her
guys.
classroom.
Yeah, the IPVO cameras.
So that's what you have in place of the Elmo. If you need help using it, I can help you, Val. Shouting you out now. But yeah, I know there's, likes and dislikes with every technology thing, but we don't even have Elmos anymore.
No. I think it's been a bit. So I don't know what the history of it was, but those are what we started to get in the district. So.
Yep. And then, do we think that the Instructional Technology Committee would reconvene? I know so much has changed over the past, 4 to 5 years. We've come so far since those meetings, and yes, we have. So thank you for saying that. Those meetings were crucial. They were extremely important. It's one of the most, the things that I'm most proud of in my time being here that I've been a part of. I would love to see those committee meetings back. However, I don't have the magic wand to make them happen, but I will surely bring it up in conversations, which I have this year. So hopefully we will get back on the bandwagon for that. I do know that there are a lot of other committees happening currently, so we can't keep pulling teachers for committees. But maybe if things slow down, we can get that up and running. So thank you so much for that question, because that is an important one. And I know another part of this is between the standards now having computer science and engineering. I'm curious to see what it's like, which is true because there are new state standards that are supposed to be incorporated starting in September, and they are digital fluency standards and computer science and engineering standards. So we're going to chip away at those standards as best as we can, and then hopefully this committee can reconvene so we can get some other ideas flowing. So that concludes our questions and our last episode, so hopefully you enjoyed.
Yeah.
We will have that last discussion question for you, and then this will wrap up for the week. So your discussion question should be answered by Friday, April 12th. And then we'll be in touch thereafter for another cohort, hopefully.
Sounds good.
All right, see you later.
Bye.